thing as things coming on the scene that had never been done before. We don't want to face that. The racists in 1960s said, you know what? The black people out here burning up the cities and demonstrating every day. We can't get nothing done. Everything is off course. Say so now they're talking about studying their history. We will watch that. It scared them at first. But when they found out that what we were studying history for, they relaxed. Because we were studying history in order to do what? Feel good. You got it. That's why we started studying history. Once they figured out that's what we were going to do with it, they helped us. They say, oh, you want your picture on the wall? You want a picture of Timbuktu? Oh, I'll cover the wall with pictures of Timbuktu. 1,500 years ago. What else do you need? Right. You want to feel good. Okay, you want to clap your hands? Bring on some tom-toms, some kettle drums and whatnot. Hey, y'all know how to beat drums. Beat on them, Just don't beat on me, right. See, so they said we want to take history and go on a feel-good trip rather than do what? What is the purpose for studying history? To learn and to learn what? And to learn, wait a minute, let's take it step by step. To learn what happened in order to do what? Not repeat mistakes. Okay? Our foreparents, out of all due regard for them, and I got them, I admired my father and mother and grandfather and the grandmother. They did the best they could, but it still wasn't good enough. Why? And that's the truth. See, we got to face that truth. They might have known a whole bunch of stuff, okay? But when they came up against this, they had no idea of what to do. And proof of it is we are here in 2003 in this room right now on Georgia Avenue in what some people say is the capital of the world, trying to figure out what to do about a mess that got started a long time ago. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Thousands of books being written because somebody made mistakes. Somebody encountered some white supremacists who was black and didn't know what they were doing and how they were doing it. That's why I put in the book, they're the most familiar mystery in the world. They're familiar in that we are looking at them all the time. We pass white people all day on the street. We work next to them. We're in the motel beds with them on Sunday morning. And don't know nothing about it. Where is the proof? Because why is it that they run everything and we don't run nothing? And we're looking right at them and can't figure them out. Okay? They are the biggest mystery in the world. We always talk about things mysterious and, Harry Potter and the wizard and all this.
Breakdown Friday, Joseph Ward, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Patrick Irvin. We breaking down Neely Fuller and Amos Wilson. We just dealing with the Neely Fuller part right now. And so start off talking about feel good black history that was being taught and that is being taught. Feel good black history, along with the lack of understanding of the utilization of the information that's being given to us. And that's still got us to where we are now, where we're still complaining about racism. We haven't really had any true progress, any tangible progress. But we do want these things. We want the progress. We want to end racism. We want the system of justice to happen. But we're stuck in a place to where we just need to feel good. We're addicted to feeling good. I just say that we have an addiction to feeling good, using the information to make ourselves feel good and to make others feel good. And it's kind of like, we talk about it all the time, how in certain circles that we've seen where people who have chosen to leave Christianity get into these non-Christian circles, and the atmosphere is still Christian, like it's still like they're in the church, because the speaker's up in front of everybody and they're speaking, they're hooping and hollering, and everybody, yes, and they just switching the amen with ashes, right? Because let's be real, we all know, we all seen it. They switch the amens with ashes, and everything that they would say in the church, they they're expressing themselves the same way, just using different wording. So this is what Neely Fuller is getting into, and Amos Wilson's piece is going to support it as well. But go to you first, PC, because I like that shirt. That's a smooth shirt you got on. So what are your thoughts on what Amos Wilson is talking about?
So it kind of takes me back to Do the Right Thing, and the scene where which was a repetitive scene, is when a brother came in and he kept asking, "Yo, Sal, why isn't there any brothers on the wall?" You know what I'm saying? That conversation about being representative, representation. We just want to seat at the table. We have created, well, not we, they have created a God complex, a Messiah complex, in which they taught black people that their God is white, and that because their God is blonde hair, blue eyes, that black people associate godliness, being next to godliness, with being next to whiteness. And so that's part of it. There's another part of it too, though, and I think you might have to bleep this out, but I think ass whoopings led to assimilation. The desire to be assimilated. And it started with the buck breaking on the plantations. It started with the changing, the removal of power and the likeness of black skin. And so a lot of black folk nowadays, especially, and I think we talked about it a little bit last week, but I think that we've been trained very well to want to be considered or want proximity to whites. There was a time when when post Reconstruction, when black folk were out there building their own towns, and black people were really coming up and creating their own financial and economic power structure, that the social engineers of that time, which were Rockefellers, all the blue blood families, determined that they had to fix the black problem. And the way they created the narrative was that we set black people free from slavery. We've emancipated black folk from slavery, but we didn't give them any skills, so they're out here illiterate and this, that, and the other, which is the furthest thing from the truth. Black people from slavery went from less than 5% of the population being literate to over 50% of the population being literate by the year 1900. So that was factually inaccurate. Black people were building up their own epicenters throughout the world. I mean, we all talk about the Black Wall Street, but let's be real. There were dozens of Black Wall Streets that black people had built up. So they created these institutions, and Rockefeller is famous for having this train ride down the I-95 corridor, in which he came up with this brilliant plan to become philanthropists, and along with other blue blood families, they started creating these land grant institutions, these HBCUs. And that's why these HBCUs all have they're all named after white benefactors. Even the ones here in Philadelphia, Lincoln University and Cheney University, white benefactors. So when you have that institution, you're able to train and retrain black folk to think like white people. And then even up until a decade ago, Howard University was still punishing students for having locks and braids in their hair, because they had preparatory classes that their students had to take on in order to go into the workforce, not build or create their own, but go into the workforce and assimilate further. And so the academia, the academics and things of that nature, creating a talented 10th and things of that nature, when you create all those different things, that's who black folk look up to. Black folk look up to those who best emulate white practices, white excellence. Black folk look up to that. And so we didn't learn from the history. Dr. Carter G. Woodson put out The Miseducation of the Negro, one of several books that he wrote. In that book, he said that if we don't regain control of the academics of black people so that it benefits black people, we'll just create a legacy of black-skinned white supremacists who will teach black folk to go to the back doors of buildings. And if there's not a back door to the building, then black folk will build one. Right. So you have all these different things going into place, and best believe those Negroes, they saw what happened to the black people who actually put up some resistance. They saw what happened to the ones that became political prisoners. They saw the police sanctioned and state sanctioned hits and assassinations carried out on Martin Luther King. At the time, they thought Malcolm X, it was strictly the Nation of Islam. We now know that the FBI and the CIA played a great deal, a large part in the assassination of Malcolm X. And so it was safer to be an academic than it was to be a revolutionary. And therefore, if I'm an academic, I can punch down on other black folk and use my intellectual skills, my oration and knowledge of history to pretty much dress down any brothers and sisters who might be interested in changing the said circumstances of black people today. And I land up.
So you saying like Halle Berry and Monsters Ball, we just want to feel good. We just want somebody to make us feel good.
Yeah.
And just intellectual masturbation is what makes us feel good.
I mean, think about it. You look at social media on a daily basis. You got people saying happy birthday to cats that been dead for you. You got people saying reaching out and trying to impress other people with their knowledge of history. But when you look at the people that actually led revolutions or rebelled in the past, like a Nat Turner, then Mark Vesey, and you look at the people that they were lining up against, those people didn't have a real background historically about what was going on. Most of their background was spiritual. Most of them were basically saying, spiritually speaking, we're ordained by God to fight for our freedom. We're ordained by God to rebel against this enemy, this evil oppressor. You know, most of them didn't even pick, they could barely read. You look at the Haitian Revolution. You think they were out there reading history books? You know, back in Timbuktu, we did this, the Nile Valley civilizations, you know, no, they knew the spiritual history, but they didn't know, you know, they weren't out there, you know, trying to publish a book. It wasn't nobody out there screenshotting or going Facebook Live during their liberation struggles. We got that type of stuff going on today. And then most of these Negroes just want to be famous enough to be in a history book themselves. So
Yeah. All right. Pat, get in here. Then I'm gonna give my thoughts. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. No, I agree with PC. I believe it was H.T. Keeler wrote in a composite book that was released in 1898 called The Negro Problem. It was a composite book, a composite of various lectures, or I'm sorry, short writings and essays and stuff from various prominent speakers and academics and things of that nature at a time. I believe W.B. Du Bois had a article in there, and Booker T. Washington had a article in there. Paul Lawrence Dunbar. But in any case, I always find the part by H.T. Keeling interesting because this is in 1898, and it was the earliest book that I had read where somebody had gone through and tried to chronicleize or tried to identify the inborn traits of black people as a race and the inbred traits that black people in America had picked up due to our circumstances. And what's really interesting about that is, you know, the traits that he selected. One of the traits that always goes back to when he talks about the inborn traits, he talks about how black people all over are cheerful, right? And then he talks about how black people all over, regardless of circumstances, are affectionate and show a lack of vindictiveness, right? Like as our natural state of being as black people. Um, and then of course, you know, you look at the way we treat each other, and that's addressed too when he gets into the inbred traits. But one of the most interesting parts of that is when you combine all those things together, you get somebody that just want to feel good. They just want to move through life smiling, happy, live well, and die, right? And we're not in an environment now where that's conducive to what we need to do. And this goes back to what you know, some of the things I said last week, where it's like at some point, elders have got to break the mold and start challenging the younger generations to be different, to do different, and to add to the story, add to the narrative. I think one of the biggest challenges we have now is that we don't really know. And I agree with like what he said, we don't utilize history properly. A lot of
Right.
us don't know what to do with history.
Right.
Like that's because historically, history has been used, and this goes all the way back. It's been used by the common person to make them feel better.
Yep.
We overcame. We did this. We're powerful. There's been a select group of people that understand that they can utilize history to change, make changes in the present that will create a new future. But there's been a disconnect. Yeah, there's been a disconnect between the advocates, the activists, and the historians. And that's largely been powered by the fact that nobody's been groomed to know what to do with history. So
we I mean, the conversation was about not being able, not utilize history for what we need.
Right.
And I think you were going to get it. You were getting more into, you know, the errors of our elders and not holding us accountable for doing something different than they did. And I totally agree with that, because something needs to change. You know, studying this, and then you look at the people studying, right? And I hold myself accountable too. Like, we need to be in better shape, because we're studying, but we ain't putting ourselves in position to fight for things we're studying for. Most of us, you guys are in terrific shape. I need to catch up. But when you think about like you said, the feel good notion, they have literally conditioned black folk, and I say they, white folk, have conditioned us to be happy. The singing Negro, like they literally created a lot of their programming around that. A lot of their what was it? The minstrel shows were based on the happy Negro on the plantation. They took things that we utilized that we were actually using as tools in our toolkits and our weaponry, such as singing the Negro spiritual, and turned it into the happy Negro moment. Because the Negro spiritual literally was us using the words to pass on secret messages to each other. But they took it, and now I watched something a few years ago, a show, and it was like one of those DC comic shows, and they were going for different times in history, and they ended up on a plantation, and black folk were being mistreated, killed, and lynched in the show. And then they just showed the resilient spirit of black people by having these Negroes start singing. And I started getting pissed off, because I'm like, singing, you getting your ass whooped.
And you know, that's
singing?
like the magical Negroes. No, that's actually like a character trope in Hollywood, like the magical Negro. But it's like, so like I was trying to say,
I'm sorry,
it wasn't coming out right, but the lack of the utilization of history. So I think about the story of Sundiata and how the kingdom of Mali was founded. So Sundiata had his jelly, his griot. He used the word griot, but his jelly. I can't. I just forgot his name, but he had the jelly with him. So the jelly's purpose was to know the history, to be able to teach it to the king. And the king's job was to utilize the history to expand the empire and expand his people and make things better for his people and his empire, right? So Sundiata literally utilized the historical information that he was given to help found the empire of Mali. Now, we get to where we are now. We have so much history to learn from of what worked and what didn't work. But we are stuck in this mode of the intellectual masturbation. I need to feel good. It's like if I know more history than the next, then I'm a better person. It's the elitism of it. It's the separation. It makes me feel good. We are relegated to only feeling good. We're relegated to only expressing ourselves artistically because that makes us feel good. Like you said, PC, you're going through, we've all seen it in the movies. You're going through this tough time and you got to sing it out. Swing low, we shall overcome. It's something about the song. It's something about the song that just empowers us to make that charges us up. Like if we were superheroes, once again, we were superheroes. The way we activate our powers is through song. And then now we could tell off the whole world because that's our superpower, to tell off people. Right. But hey, it's not working. It's not.
I think
you're trying to feel good is not really making us feel good.
But I think that we're in a doubly negative space, as I remember now, because what you just said triggered it. Because we also exist in a society where people don't know what to do with history. Like when we talk about like American society as a whole, right? That I mean, we're seeing it right now in counseling and therapeutic practices where the dominant therapeutic practices nowadays are therapeutic practices that are solutions based and present time focused. They are advising young counselors to not focus on past events or past traumas. And that speaks to a lack of understanding about how the past creates the present.
One thing we could do right now, and Neely Fuller said it, one thing we could do right now is use history and all of the information that we have to learn our enemies, learn everything we need to know about white people and how we move so we won't keep making the same mistakes and basically becoming a part of everything they have because we feel like what they have is better because we don't spend time learning. And he said they're right next to us. They're incorporated into every aspect of our lives, and we still don't know them and understand them. We don't. That's one thing we could do with the history is learn our enemies. You could do that immediately.
Here's the problem with that, Joe.
It's too much
I'm gonna
work.
shut up because I feel like PC got some insight to drop on your head, bro. Here's the problem with that, what you just said. The problem is we don't want to learn history, period. Like it's not even learn it to utilize it properly. We don't want to learn history, period, because the true history of the last 400 or 500 years for black people has been a history of getting your ass beat. That don't feel good. We don't want to learn that. Everybody's trying to skip over that. So even when we talk about like slave narratives, right? Like why people say they hate reading about slave narratives. I'm just so tired of seeing black folk get this and black folk get that. Or you have those people on the other side to say black people didn't blah. Slavery interrupted black history. Slavery is not black history. No, slavery is black history. This shit happened. It's not
all of that is true. It interrupted it, but it's still our damn history.
But it did not interrupt it. It was a part of black history. There was no interruption. That's what happened. See, to me, and I know I'm technical tech, but that's another cute way of not dealing with the issue.
Well,
Slavery happened.
yeah, it did. It,
Accept
it
it.
it it literally happened, and but that's why I'm with you. I disagree when people are against the slave narratives or the slave movies, and they just try to dismiss that part and just go to the things once again that makes them feel better. We got to get out of our feelings. I meant to say that at the beginning. Don't bring your feelings into watching these videos because we need logic. We need reason. Because clearly we see why our feelings have us not where we want to be. But go ahead, PC, because let them have it.
No. Well, I think that what y'all were just talking about is the point. History wasn't interrupted. Black progress might have been interrupted, but that was still a part of history. We're not honest with ourselves about what really happened. We lost a war with the different countries, the organized different countries of Europe at the time. We lost the war. We lost several wars. Because the first war was the war where they were able to come onto the continent and enslave brothers and sisters. Even if it was a war of deception, it was still a war. The second part of that war we lost was when they created the Berlin Conference and decided that they were going to carve up Africa and all these different places. Not to mention what happened over here. We're not honest about the fact that we lost that war. So we want to talk about the glorious past, but we don't want to talk about the fact that the glorious past ended in us losing. Thousands of years of empire is great to look at nostalgically speaking, but we lost it. We don't even study how we lost it. We lost it due to infiltration. We lost it to a very patient, wicked group of people who planned it out and made sure that when they made this plan, because we like to talk about how the Moors civilized Europe, and they also taught Europe how to whoop our ass. So we don't like talking about that because that's too much like the truth. But also, I mean, shit, who navigated those ships to this world? Who even told Europe that this world existed? All right, over here in the Americas. So we step around and dance around all that. And like I said, I don't really care about anybody's sensitivities because it is what it is. We got people adopting religions that all took part in enslaving our ancestors. So, but we don't. But in that part, right? What I really figured out in how powerful film was in the narration was when the brother came out with Spook Who Sat by the Door. When the FBI shows up at your doorstep, right, to take a film, and thank God he made a copy of it. And Melvin Van Peebles actually showed it. The power of that film and what it spoke to black people in modern day time learning their enemy. What the Elder Neely Fuller just said, we don't even take time to learn our enemy. Well, that film was about learning our enemy. And it was at a time right before, that's when Hollywood decided that we need the blaxploitation era to begin, which literally saved Hollywood. Yeah, we need the blaxploitation because these Negroes are starting to make these different movies to deal with them. Because it wasn't just that movie. You had movies by Iceberg Slim, books that turned into movies that spoke about sabotaging and thwarting different elements of
Degenerate black behavior.
Right. Well, in addition to that, The Trick was about infiltration. Infiltrating certain areas and this, sending the trick baby in there to get information about certain things. So it's different elements to that had to be changed. They had to throw us in a different direction. So that's when they started coming out with Superfly and all that other shit. So, but the bottom line is we are afraid of the wrath of white folk. They have had several different eras in this country that they have shown black people we will smear the streets in your blood if you play with us. The Red Summer of 1919. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
the purges that were going on in black
Just getting
communities every
short on
time
that.
Jack Johnson want to fight. Uh, then you had the Mississippi burning episode, towns burnt, whole towns being burnt down. You had in the 70s, you had the I mean they just go they it's like almost like you keep playing with you put the tsunami of blood on you and
But
go ahead, Joe.
my thing is, we know all of that. We know all of that happened. They burnt down the towns. We know how they've been
No,
treating us
y'all
since.
know all of that, but go ahead.
Black folk, look,
No, they
black
don't.
folk
Stop
also
it.
got the
Black folk
stories
don't know all
of
of that. I'm sorry. Go
black
ahead.
folk got the stories of people, black people moving to white neighborhoods, being treated bad, and then black folks still want to move to white neighborhoods. I understand we not learning. I see your eyes, Theodore. I see your eyes. I see we not learning. That's why we here. That's why we here talking. Because we not learning from this. We soaking it in, and we just it's entertainment to us. Because I mean, I'm not. I fully understand what you're saying that we're not studying, and the bulk of us haven't studied, but we've been exposed to stories and things through all the media that we've been consuming and seeing. Okay, well, when black people move to white neighborhoods, black people don't have the best experiences, but black people still try to move to white neighborhoods. Once again, getting back to we are not really. We're not studying history in any aspect, but especially the aspect of we don't like racism. We don't like white supremacy. We don't like the way the white people treat us. But then what we don't do is study them, is learn
Well,
them so we can better defend ourselves.
I mean, think about it like this too. When we when you hear people talk nowadays, they don't say shit like black people are going to be liberated. They don't say stuff like that. You
Want to be
had
equal.
we want to be equals. Y'all just lucky that we just want equality and equal. What is equality? There's no equality doesn't exist. Either
What,
you
what
have power or you don't.
what's that shit they be talking about? Equality, inclusion, and what? Diversity.
Equality, inclusion, diversity, a seat at the table, whatever they want to talk about. But none of that stuff matters because we don't control any of the rules. We don't have any leverage. We don't control any of the policy. And at any time they feel like it, they change the rules to the game. So nothing we do really matters because for every step we take, they increase their lead on us by a mile. Yes, sir.
Mr. Professor, so you saying for homework, we got to learn our enemy and we got to learn the law and the policy so we can better use them to protect ourselves and fight our enemies. You saying we got to do all that for homework, Professor?
Actually, what I'm saying is we need to learn what the Nation of Islam said they were doing. We need to learn how to do for self and not be concerned with anybody else. We need to learn how to, but it's going to be a very difficult task because we're real late in the game. We don't control any of the financial institutions. We don't control where we get our food from. We don't control any of the areas of human activity that Elder Neely Fuller talk about. In fact, and we want to bask in the glory. And as soon as one of us gets a couple of dollars, we'll start saying stuff like racism doesn't exist. So, we are in a bad place right now where it's like we're in the eighth inning. I won't say it's the ninth inning because that's just too real for some people. We're in the bottom of the eighth and well, we're in the top of the eighth inning because they're the home team. We're in we're in the top of the ninth inning. And we got one out, and it's two strikes and one ball on the hitter and nobody on base. And you know what I'm saying? In the bat, and we have our weakest batters up in the lineup. We don't even have our heavy hitters that can actually close the gap. And we're down by a dozen. We need a run, and we need to run on runs. And right now, we don't seem to have the capacity for any of that stuff. You know, shoot, we'd rather be out here doing whatever, pretending like our children, nieces, and nephews ain't out here shooting up the block. We don't even acknowledge that shit. So, when it comes down to acknowledging the greatest empire of all time has been whooping our behind, and the first thing people want to do is go to a history book and say that's not true. African empires reigned for thousands of years. Yeah, but this is the most dominant system the world has ever seen. This is the
we
most
got a debate.
fail-safe. Listen, this is the most fail-safe system that's been put in place. The most sophisticated system that's been put in place. All the things that we want to try to do, they've created a puzzle, wrapped in an enigma, and in all these different ways for us to get trapped up and caught up. So, yeah, like this is a labyrinth. Trying to defeat white supremacy. Like you figure out a roadmap, we're going to get out of this and build our own, and you turn around and all the entrances have changed. The whole damn building then switched around. You don't even know which way is left or right, north or south. And we don't even have the collectiveness or wantingness to say, listen, let's create a code of conduct that's going to recreate. Because this is something new, right? We talked about this with PAX. Create a culture out of codified behavior. We talk about being on code, but what is code? What is being on code? We don't even have a definition of what being on code is. So we talk about being on code, but what is codified behavior if we ain't practicing it and it changes because somebody feels different, or it changes because somebody with a larger platform decides that they want to take us in a different direction. They want to take us over here. And we have, like we said before, the 80-20 rule. Everybody's going to follow that 20, or nowadays it's like the talented 10th we created because we like to be elite Negroes. We can't just be black. We have to be some form of elite Negro because being black ain't good enough. It's associated with the losing we just talked about. But we don't have the and I know I sound really pessimistic, but we're late in the game. We don't have time to be nice about it or care about anybody's damn feelings. We don't seem to have the gusto, the oomph, that factor that says no matter how many times you hit me, I'm going to get up, and eventually I'm going to hit you to the point where you're going to stop swinging on me. We don't seem to have that fight in us no more. A lot of people have resigned to the fact that it can't be done. They don't want to say it publicly, but their actions speaks volumes. They're not building any community centers, and they're not building any areas. You got bourgeois Negro suburban areas that are being built, but they still got white supermarkets. They still got white hospitals. They still got white school districts. And then anytime they do anything too well, like they did down PG County about a decade ago, the children scored too well in these aptitude tests. Oh, we're going to lock the teachers up because y'all cheat. You know what I'm saying? We don't have control over the areas that we need, and we don't have the want to actually create that, and we're too afraid because of our epigenetic memory of the ass whoopings. That's why when Donald Trump got elected, Negroes were talking about moving to Canada. That's why during that June 6th fiasco that happened, you had black folk out there talking about we need to line up with the Antifa cats because they're our allies. And no, they're all your enemies. Antifa was blowing shit up in your own neighborhoods, talking about fuck y'all. Excuse my language. We got to bleep that one out. But we're just all over the place because we want to do anything we can except be grounded in the codified effort to build black power.
And feel good. It feels good.
Feels good.
I think that's the core of every, because even in the examples you gave, black folk talked about moving to Canada. How many of them went?
They moved to
Black
Canada
folk
Street.
talked about partnering up with Antifa. How many of them actually did it?
They went to Antifa Street.
Yeah, black folk we talk about a lot of stuff, but how many of us actually? And I think that's the core of it, right? Like again, there's a disconnect between these different levels of activity and scholarship, and that gap needs to be bridged. There are those people out there that they best serve their community with their nose in the book. Those people also need to understand that you're probably not going to be remembered. Dr. John Henry Clark was Malcolm X's personal historian in a lot of regards. A lot more people know about Malcolm X than John Henry Clark. You know what I'm saying? Like, though, if you want to be an academic, you got to accept the fact that you are a dark worker. That's what you are. Unless you find something new to create. But at this point, we've had enough created in the academic field. There's been like we got Black history departments already being created all over the. We got Black scholarship institutions, blah blah blah, being created. And quiet is kept. All of those organizations, institutions need to be operated in secret, anyways. They don't need to be front street organizations. So
Straight up.
so it goes back to, I think there needs to be a cultural realignment within the community. We've got to address one of the things I love about that H.T. Keeling thing that I mentioned earlier is that it forces us to look at what's ingrained to Black people, what is something that's unique to Black people in America, and what are the things that, like, are these traits that we can get rid of, and how do we do that? And I think, like, I know a lot of people, like, because nowadays it's funny, right? We're in the age of, like, nobody's really creating anything new. Everybody's just putting a scale on it and saying that we need to be cool with it, anything being at any specific point in that scale. Like, everything's on a sliding scale, from gender to sexuality to intelligence, to everybody's on a spectrum, right? And they're teaching us that we just have to accept the spectrum, right? And in theory, that sounds cool, but when you actually trying to put some shit together, a spectrum becomes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's what.
Black people, go ahead.
Nah, go ahead. You should go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and Black people, I think one of the things we've got to do is we've got to sit down and we've got to identify the cultural traits that we present in general, and we've got to identify the spectrum that these traits exist on, and we got to identify what part on that spectrum falls into or opens the door to and creates the unacceptable area. And then we've got to create a plan to move people in that area out of that area. And that don't mean like every individual. That could mean just on a generational level, all right, all these people is just cut off. But we're going to get their offspring into a new place. And that has to be something that we're doing on a communal basis, family by family. But even the family by family piece has to be a part of some sort of larger communal effort. The problem with all that is that I understand that people are going to hear that and they're going to say that's impossible to do. And that goes back into H.T. Keeling in the inborn versus the inbred, because one of the things he says is inbred is a lack of initiative, a lack of confidence, and a lack of faith.
Well, that means I'm finna hit you with your own line. But we ain't gonna study. We don't want to study. But because that's what that comes back to. Everything you were saying, but we agree with it, but everything you're saying still goes back to us utilizing the information, studying the information, and utilizing the information, learning from the information. It still go back to what Neely Fuller is talking about. If you don't utilize the information, you don't learn the information, you don't understand the information, especially to have a better perspective of what you're dealing with and why you're dealing with it and how to better deal with it, you're gonna continue to lose. You don't know the rules to the game, but you keep playing.
Yeah,
that don't make sense.
And let's not forget that we're at war, and we overlook that a lot. There are agents that are being planted amongst us, that knowing or unknowing, that are going to always try to convince other Black people when they see us making some headway, they're going to be incentivized to turn other folk the other way. They're going to be incentivized to consistently try to get Black folk to appeal to the good nature of white people. That's why they'll start saying, catchphrases like, we want our voices heard. Heard by who? We want to, try to appeal to the better nature. The better nature of people that you can be roommates with, you can be best friends with, but at the end of the day, they're not going to share their power with you. They're not going to just willfully
No,
work over that. And here's the thing. I don't blame them.
it's not
I don't,
designed for them to do that.
I don't blame white folk. I don't blame the system of white supremacy for creating a powerful structure that benefits their future, that benefits their community, that benefits their children, and all above. Maintain that power structure. I don't blame them. I blame us for consistently laying down. I blame us for not doing like Elder Neely Fuller said, not utilizing the history to learn from it, not studying our enemy because they damn sure study us, and not
It
doing it from
feels good.
and that's what it really comes down to. Like, if you're ready to fight, and they've even co-opted that shit. When I saw what was happening in 2020, when they were ripping the cities up, this, that, and the other, it was like one or two white folk walking around looking all raggedy and crazy, and then hordes of young brothers and sisters behind them tearing up the cities and things of that nature. I saw
You
that
wanna
with my
know?
own eyes.
You want to know why? Because it made us feel good.
Yeah,
Still go back to feeling. That's why. That's why you hear grown men talking about. I feel like. I feel like. I feel like. I feel like. We feel. When we gonna get out of our feelings and get into reality. Because being in our feelings is one of the things that's keeping us in a place where we don't. Where we continue to say we don't want to be, but clearly our actions. So we really want to be. Because come on, PC, racism ain't real, man. Come on, how racism real when I ain't got no problems in my life. I could pay my mortgage. I got a good job. I got a good social circle. Everything happening. The women be on me. I got muscles. I don't be ashy. My skin glowing. My hairline ain't what it used to be, but still,
listen,
everything is going. PC. I'm a black person. I'm a be one of these black person. I made $2 million last year. How you gonna tell me racism? How you gonna tell me? Look, good fences make good neighbors, right?
uh,
I'm just saying that's no shot. I'm just saying I'm just using the saying. That's no shot. I'm just using the saying though.
hey, listen, man, and I'm gonna say this, right? Not that individual, but I literally recently in person heard from one of the world's most renowned black social media influencers, right? I'm not even gonna say his name. Said that racism, he don't want to hear that black shit. Get out of his face with that black shit. Um, I heard him say, you know, that if you start talking to me about the white man, I'm just gonna walk away from you because the world is about winners and losers. The winners are over here winning, and the losers are over here complaining. And there's no such thing as racism because I made it. And if I can make it and become a multi-millionaire, there's no excuse for you. And I
Right.
said, you know what? I said, I mean, it's not that I even because I don't have a high opinion of a lot of people anyway. But it just made me realize that the people with the biggest microphones, the megaphone, our enemies know who they are, and they get to them first, and they make them. They become the this is the new Zip Coon Dandy. This is the new uh minstrel show. And they just put now you don't have to have them in black faces. You just put black faces on here. And see, that's who has the control of the majority of the masses. I saw people in that crowd who I thought were conscious than a motherfucker, snapping fingers and clapping and this, that, and the other to a message that I thought was as anti black power as any I've ever heard. You couldn't have gone to a Klan rally and heard some shit.
Amen. I mean, Ashe. Ashe. One of them. My bad.
So when you so that and that's what we're up against. So because what Pat said makes perfect sense. Don't think for a second that there's not a multi-million-dollar or $1 billion think tank that also assumes that and are working ahead of us in regards to making sure that doesn't happen, making sure
Everything.
that we don't
Oh
build
yeah.
what we need to, because they're going to always put, faulty bricks in the mix, they're going to always do something to damage the structure. They're going to, and the person that damages the structure is going to look like us.
Everything that we can think of, they've already thought of. They study us. They know us. They have look. We're on their stuff right now. They've been collecting data on us. They collect data through your phone, all that stuff. They've been collecting data. They know us. We fail to know them. So we got it. Hey, what you want me to do about that?
I would say this real quick though. Before we start studying history, from the standpoint of devising strategy, we need to study the game. You need to learn the rules of engagement before you start learning the strategies for victory. And right now, we don't know the rules of engagement.
And until we do, we're gonna be messed up.